Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation sales and marketing success stories. I am Jennifer Carpus Romaine, Executive Director here at TMSA, a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals inside transportation and logistics. And today I'm excited to have on the show Jeff Price, Director of Marketing at Jacksonville Port Authority, also known as JAXPORT. Welcome to the show, Jeff. How you doing today?
Doing great, Jen. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome to have you back on the show. And today I want to talk about all things marketing and maritime logistics, AI, all of the things, because that's all the things that you're super passionate about. So, how has your career led you to this intersection of marketing and maritime, and now being kind of known for your AI prowess?
Well, thanks, Jen. Yeah. And, I started my career almost 30 years ago. And that's about the time that I built my first website. And in fact, my first job was at the city of Jacksonville in Jacksonville, Florida, helping to update their website, writing stories for their magazine. And fast forward to the introduction of social media. I started up social media at JAXPORT in 2008. So my career has always been involved with communications and marketing and technology. And so when I was first really exposed to AI in 2022, working with what's now known as Jasper, and spinning up my own little blog post writer, that seemed like a natural extension to kind of take it to the next level. Of course, and I've shared this with TMSA before, but in 2022, I thought that it was going to take a few years for AI to really take off, but then ChatGPT came out, of course, later that year, and everything changed. And I knew immediately that I needed to upskill. I needed to dive in because this was going to be a real game changer for everybody, and obviously it has been.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so excited to announce that you are one of our finalists for the AI and Tech Showdown keynote at Elevate this year. So, in case people don't know, we decided to create a competition for our opening keynote. We will have 4 finalists that will take the stage and showcase in 8 to 10 minutes the cool tech that they are doing at their companies. And I'm super pumped about it. Whoever wins this will be the mic drop winner for tech. And the audience gets to vote live. So it's a cool and innovative way for TMSA to kick off our show. If you want to join us, this will be at Elevate June 7th through 9th in Denver. You can register at events.tmsatoday.org. But you are the first one. I will interview all of our finalists on the show, of course, but you are the first one. So I want to talk about what made you decide to submit your use case and kind of show people what it is that you're really doing with AI.
Absolutely. So, we work here at a port authority, and so we're selling and marketing to the same individuals, the supply chain professionals making those transportation decisions, as a 3PL, as a warehouse, as a trucking firm, and rail carriers and other members of TMSA. And that said, we go about it perhaps a little bit differently. So we're swimming in data here at JAXPORT, and most port authorities find themselves in that instance. And so how can we leverage our data in the best way possible to help our sales and marketing effort? And we've engaged in specific projects where we've built our own tool set. So we're kind of moving to this world where you don't necessarily have to rely on somebody else to build the tool for you. You can actually build your own tools. And so we're going to share that story. I'm going to share that story and hopefully inspire people, challenge everybody's notion of perhaps the very nature of work itself, and to not be scared, but to embrace this time of exponential change, and how you can leverage these technologies to help you in your sales and marketing effort.
Absolutely. And one of the problems you described here is that there's a lot of data, but never enough time or capacity to really turn it into insight if you're just doing that all manually. And so, how common of a challenge do you think that actually is across logistics organizations? I'm going to guess pretty common, but would love your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is pretty common. And at Elevate a few years ago, we heard from ITS and Lead Coverage in a story how they utilized their data to get tremendous reach with a public relations effort. And so that's inspired some of our own efforts in a different vein, but um, it's a pretty common challenge. So but we don't necessarily want to share our data with third parties either. And so the type of activity that I'll be talking about is how we build our own tools to with AI to then analyze our data in house, so that we're not sharing data in a way that we don't want to, but in a way that's actually effective and can actually help our efforts. So, so it is about balancing the strategic and the short term interest that we have. The specific challenge that we've had has been the project takes so long. It took so long previously, where the particular report looking at trade flows and understanding, okay, who's using this other port, but not necessarily JAXPORT. Or it might be saying, hey, are these businesses growing in volume at JAXPORT, or are they declining? And that tells a very different story when you have your sales executive speaking with that company. It's either a thank you, for the additional business over the last few months, or it's hey, what can we do differently to earn back your business? And so that's the type of translating that data over to the actual sales conversation. And then it, of course, helps with our ABM effort as well on the marketing front.
Hmm. And so you were able to kind of reduce a report that once took 3 weeks to create down to 45 minutes. That's great. That's insane. That's like, whoo. So I would love you to walk us through how you actually achieved that, because like those numbers seem insane.
Yeah, and that's the type of scale and efficiency that you can achieve when you apply AI to a problem set. And that's going to be the key. Everybody's has different problems, right? But utilizing the AI to help you solve your problem, and maybe AI is a part of it at the end result, but sometimes it isn't. But you need the AI in the front end to help you get to the solution on the back end. So specifically with this problem, the 3 week uninterrupted work. So it's we have a business analyst on staff, and she'll be at Elevate as well, and she gets so many report requests, and also serves as a logistics provider liaison, working with the warehouses and the trucking firms here in Jacksonville to make sure they have the info they need from JAXPORT. So to have her just block out 3 weeks of time, you bringing down data from a system called Piers, which is an overlay over U.S. Customs trade data, is just unrealistic. And so it had been 4 years since we even ran the report, so we just weren't running it. But these comparative reports and understanding who's growing, who's declining, this is very valuable information for our marketing and sales effort. But we just didn't have the time. We didn't have the budget to outsource this work either. So it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Let's have a dedicated effort. Let's meet once a week. Let's work with the AI chat apps. Let's figure out a solution. And that's how we came about with a workflow using. It's a little bit programmatic, so I'm not going to get into the tech heavy details, but in terms of sifting through this data and getting insight on the back end, that was the key, and that's what now takes 45 minutes a quarter.
And so one of the first things that you did, well, first off, that's just amazing. And just thinking about having 3 weeks of uninterrupted workflow is just, that's impossible for anyone to do. So like having to have that analysis like broken down, and like now having all of that time back for her to do all the other things is amazing. I know one of the first things that you really worked on was then turning that complex trade data into sales ready leads, like being able to actually help sales and revenue, which is a huge part of what sales and marketing wants to do, is bring in that business. That's how we get there is different, but that's the ultimate goal for anyone. So what did that workflow look like before AI entered the picture, and then how did AI really help make that transition happen?
Yeah, so in the immediate past, we just hadn't run the report at all, but now we're able to do so. What I can say is that and what I'll share about the keynote in June at Elevate is that this is not a story of perfect success either. We've had failures along the way. I'm going to be documenting those so that, everybody understands that there isn't, a silver bullet that just solves everything, right? But it does take a dedicated effort, and it is possible. It is possible to achieve some really amazing things with the use of AI to help you solve whatever problem you might be facing at work. So, with that in mind, sales team, our sales execs, they really didn't want, another spreadsheet, even though it had amazing data and it informed the conversation. So I'll be sharing the story of how we pivoted to meet them where they're at, so that they can be enabled and not be overwhelmed and actually have this actionable insight that they can take and start using right away.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, yes, like you would share that spreadsheet, didn't see a lot of traction because nobody wants to look at a spreadsheet or figure out what that means and like how to get that data, move it into actual insights. So when you then started to be able to bring those results to them in a quicker, faster way, what did you learn about how or what insights needed to be delivered to actually drive action for your sales team?
Yeah, so here at JAXPORT, we use Salesforce to track our opportunities, and so it became under the leadership of our Chief Commercial Officer, Robert Peak, who I might just break away on an aside for a moment, who through TMSA conversations more than 10 years ago was exposed to a story where you had a large organization and their sales team and their marketing team were just not aligned, and they were not even talking to each other. And so here at JAXPORT, what he's really wanted us to do is have just one revenue generation unit, have sales and marketing working hand in hand, and complementing each other so that we can go to market together. And I think that we do a good job. I don't think that we have everything solved. It's always a relationship build and understanding where each is coming from so that we can deliver what they need in the best way possible. But this was the story of that effort and how we met them, where they're at, and using Salesforce so that they actually have some actionable steps to take following this analysis.
I think that's amazing, and really like thinking through, yes, like sales and marketing needs to be aligned. Like we said earlier, everybody's goal is to make revenue, and your piece of the puzzle might be different, but that's the goal. And so if your sales and marketing teams aren't viewing themselves really on the same team, then there's a lot of friction there. So I think anytime that you can create streamlined efforts and more information sharing to make that go smoothly so people aren't butting heads, the better. So I think that's really effective and a great use. And I love that you have that support from your higher ups too, to be like, no, these teams should work together, because that's a huge piece when you get buy-in from above. One of the other things that you talked about, and I know that you've done, is kind of developed a digital worker. And so like, I know that I use my ChatGPT and I call her Atlas. Well, I had her name herself and she said her name was Atlas because she helps guide me and all of that. It definitely streamlined my workflow, especially because she's very sassy and I'm like, oh yes, this is created in my image too. But I love putting her on sparring mode too, so that, she's just not agreeing with what I say. But anyways, you've actually developed a full digital worker. What does that actually mean in practice for your marketing team to kind of have this digital colleague working alongside you?
Absolutely. So this is the really exciting piece for me as we move kind of into this next phase of real AI development and implementation in the workforce. So you've talked about Atlas, Jen. Now imagine if Atlas could come back to you with proactive suggestions and you didn't have to prompt Atlas.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, that's the world that honestly already exists.
Mm-hmm.
And, this came into the sort of the zeitgeist in February of this year, another sea change as big as ChatGPT. I'd say only probably the more technically inclined, the ones who are really deep into AI are really utilizing this a lot. But that's what we're onboarding right now, is basically a worker that can work 24/7, provide that insight and analysis, but also take very strict guardrail direction from the humans, and just be a force multiplier for us. We work at a government agency that we're not adding headcount, our budgets are set. So it's difficult to, expand that workforce to compete with larger ports that have more resources than we do. So this is one of the ways that we're looking at having that force multiplier and being able to accomplish more in a faster way, efficient way, and still have the appropriate guardrails, still have human oversight.
I think that's a really important piece, and I love that you brought it up, the human oversight, and then it's still taking directive from the humans, because I know we talk a lot about like, will AI or technology replace humans? But I still think that the best AI tools, the best technology tools equip our teams to do their job better. Like we talked about before, in the past 3 weeks, this wonderful human would have to sit there with all of this data. Now it's done in 45 minutes. So then she can analyze it, like not spend the time sitting in, plugging the numbers and getting to the result, so that she can analyze it so that business decisions can be made. She has more time to do that part of it, which I think is really important, because I do think that part of the conversation falls out too often when we're talking about the tools. It's not just having the tools, it's how can you use them effectively. And if you're not doing that, and if you're not remembering that it is a robot and it's taking directions from you, and so if you're not putting those guardrails and if you're not giving proper directive, it's not going to give you the output that you're looking for. You still need you to be the expert.
You're 100% right. And for anybody that's managed, or if you haven't managed yet and you think about your relationship with your boss, a great employee has certain skills, right? And is autonomous to a large degree and surfaces suggestions and insights and surprises the boss, with, hey, look, we should do this initiative, or we've accomplished this thing. And so if you think in that framework, it's not too different from when you're working with the AI workers themselves as well. So as the year goes on, I suspect that the big AI companies are going to release more tools that make this more accessible. But what I'll be sharing is a demo of software that I've built that allows you to do this exact thing.
I love that. And so, speaking of that, for people that are attending Elevate, what can they expect to see when you demonstrate this workflow live during the AI Tech Showdown as one of our finalists for the opening keynote?
Yeah, so we're going to dive into Asoba, which is the open source software that I built on my own time on my own resources. But we're leveraging that here at JAXPORT, and we're giving a system to the AI to be able to basically complete marketing tasks for us. And I'll demonstrate this workflow, what it looks like, some of the tasks that we've been able to accomplish, how it's helped us, and hopefully have people have some real concrete takeaways from this session, so that they can start applying it at their business right away.
I love that. That's the whole purpose of the keynote. Is we were really sitting in the education committee being like, what could we do as a keynote that's really impactful? And one of the things that we really came about, and then I was like, we need to turn this into a competition, because immediately people have better stage presence when you make it a competition. But there's so much technology out there. There's so much AI, like going to Manifest last month and just like walking down the trade show floor, AI was everywhere. Technology was everywhere. But like, what is the differentiators to that? And how do you actually use it? Like, I feel like there's a lot of conversations about like what's coming or what people can do or how we might be able to use this. But I wanted this conversation to be like, what is being used right now and how can people immediately apply it? So I love that this use case will be a part of that, really showcase, like you said, like this is something that you're passionate about and you started, tinkering around with it on your own time, but then made it applicable to JAXPORT. And then now anyone that's going to Elevate will be able to learn those tools as well. And I do think, as we talked about too, like this is a piece of helping your sales and marketing teams move faster, quicker, really in a way to support your team. So with this, you've actually generated 13 sales qualified leads that represent about $250,000 in potential business from this process so far. So from your perspective, what does that mean about the role that AI really can play in supporting sales and marketing teams today?
Yeah, it goes beyond just doing things faster and gaining those efficiencies. That's helpful, and we can quantify that. But to actually have a revenue impact, that's that's really impactful. And that specific revenue that you just cited, that's from the peers reports that we've been able to sift through and analyze and pass those leads on to sales. Which as I mentioned, it was just not being done before. So so this is again a force multiplier for our team, and a concrete example of how using AI can help you impact that bottom line.
Absolutely. I think, yes, it's taking that information, plugging it in, letting it be a resource for your team, and then keep moving things forward. But like what you said, it's not just about how quickly you can do something, because you still have to do it the right way and utilize that information properly. And that's where your humans come in. So awesome. I do think we talked about how like AI could be overwhelming. And so if somebody like you took to it and were able to create all these things, but if someone listening wants to start using AI in their own marketing or sales environments, but they just feel like super overwhelmed, they don't know where to start. There are so many tools, of course, beyond coming to Elevate June 7th through 9th in Denver and learning. What else would be a place for them to start?
I love this question because you know what? It may come as a surprise, but I felt the same way. Okay. Overwhelmed. Like, how do I start? What should I be doing? Are my skills all outdated? What have I been doing with my life? All those types of questions, right? And honestly, the best advice is just start using a chat app. Just start using it a few minutes a day. It doesn't need to be a huge commitment. You don't need to be a programmer. If you don't know where to start, do a little bit of a brain dump. Say, hey, look, I work in this role. These are some of my challenges. Help me. What questions should I be asking in AI? And you can just start with there, and you're going to get incredible insight, incredible guidance, and you'll start down the rabbit hole and start being able to really use it in more effective and advanced ways after that.
I agree. I would say I love to learn technology. I'm not super efficient. I'm no Jeff Price, but I do use Atlas all the time, and it is more sophisticated. My coworkers are always like, "Can we borrow Atlas?" I'm like, "You just got to keep talking to her more, like yours more, because it's true." And then there's things that like I'll be like, "Remember this forever." Like this, like I hate if I'm writing sales emails, I say never put the words "no pressure" in this email because I hate that. Like you're trying to pressure them, but you're trying to have a real conversation. I just don't like the terminology. Like it makes me, and I'm always like, I don't talk like a normal business professional. I'm always human first. So like I don't want that first draft to sound like somebody else. Like always make it human first. I'm going to check in on a human before I try to sell them anything. That's just who I am. So she's better at remembering those things as we begin. And so where at the beginning, she would always, forget that. Or even like I work to build these questions in her, and she knows the last question that I ask everyone the first time. And now, which will be my last question I ask you, because you've been on the show, the one I ask when people come back on the show. And just it creates such efficiencies in that because I don't have to remind her as much as I did at the beginning. And then I definitely personally love sparring mode because I think by nature the robots want to agree with everything that you say, but I don't want her to. I want her to poke holes in. I have a whole board of directors to report to, and I would like to have as many questions answered before I present things to them as I can. And that for me is what's most efficient and like most helpful to me. We have a very small headquarters staff. The more I can poke holes in myself and my thought processes before I send it to anybody else, the better. So that's just my 2 cents on how to get started is like the robots are going to agree with you until you tell them not to.
And so that's a great point. And it's because the base instruction for a large language model is you are a helpful assistant. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's a helpful assistant, they're not going to automatically disagree with you. But what you found is that, look, you can guide the conversation. You can simulate this conversation in a way that is helpful for solving the problem that you're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that strikes me about what you just mentioned is that you've personalized this in such a way, and that's what each and every person should be doing. So, when somebody asks, "Hey, can I borrow Atlas?" Really, they should be creating their own Atlas. Right. And so start that question. Hey, I want to create a persona that is really helpful for me and my life and my business problem set. And how can I even start? That's just the first question to start, and then you can start to build off of that.
Because I definitely, you can feel it be more in your vein, in your style, in your voice, the more you use it. And so I still, there's things about AI that I don't like, especially as a parent. Like it freaks me out that like it can mimic my voice and things like that. But like using it for work and using it in a way that makes me move faster and really, like poke holes in my own process and like really think through things in a higher level way, and like answering those questions or being able to write emails more efficiently. And everybody knows those things, like tell her stop putting that dash in there. Everybody knows it means you wrote this. Stop making it look like the robot, But I think the more you use it, like you said, the more comfortable you get with it, the more you understand. But then you still understand the pieces that are you and that you're supposed to then take in. And I'll even tell her, like, if I'm writing an email and I need a gut check, I'll say, don't rewrite this. Just tell me if there's any glaring mistakes in it. And so then if there's like a grammar mistake or just like a point that is completely lost, she'll tell me that, because their first instinct is to rewrite it. But I don't want you to rewrite it. I still want it to be me. I just want to make sure that this makes sense if somebody else is reading it.
Yeah, and real quick, I can add to that is that using AI as a coach, as an educator, is another way that you can really gain a lot of advantages. So you don't have to worry about losing your edge or losing your ability or your skills, but it's just like you would ask somebody else, another peer, to review your work. You can ask the AI to do that as well, and that's another great use case there.
Yep. I think especially for really small sales and marketing teams, you don't always have the luxury of being able to ask somebody, hey, can you look at this? And so having that ability to have another voice kind of double check your sanity is always a plus. So I'm so excited to have you join the stage in that opening keynote at Elevate. When you launch initiatives, you never know how they're going to work out. And I'm so excited about this one and seeing these finalists on stage and getting the audience to get to pick our first ever Mic Tech Drop winner. So last question for you, because you have been on the show, you get my second question that I ask everybody. So if you could live one day of your life over again, you don't get to change anything, you just relive it, what day would you go back to and why?
Well, Jen, you keep pushing these time travel questions, and I don't know, you're pushing the envelope with that. Go back to my prior answer on the time travel. But if I had to relive, my dad passed in 2017, and he and we like to go to the movies together, throughout our lives. And one that jumps out at me is the Ghost Protocol Mission Impossible film. We had a good time watching that film and hanging out before and after. So that would be a day I would relive for sure.
Well, I love that answer. I just like to get to know people on a different level, and those last questions I think really achieve that. So thank you so much for coming on the show. If you want to hear more about Jeff's use of AI, join us June 7th through 9th in Denver at TMSA Elevate. You can register at events.tmsatoday.org and come back to On the Move in the upcoming weeks to check out our other finalists. Thank you so much, and see you guys next week.